I became involved in the hunt Sabs in 1972. So in the kind of early spring of 1972, that's when I went vegan. And not very long after that, I saw a television news item about the hunt Sabs. And I thought, right, I've got to help these people. I got in touch with the Hunt Saboteurs Association, and I was living near Luton in Bedfordshire at the time, and my nearest group was in Northampton, so I went and sabbed a few times with them, and then I set up my own group in the Luton area, and used to go out in my little Mini, with a few other people in the Mini with me. We used to go out pretty much every Saturday, sabbing, hunts around the area.
The worst car you could think of.
Probably worst car, yeah. It's probably the only car I could afford at the time. I mean, there would be, sort of 4 or 5 of us crammed in this Mini. Sometimes there'd be other people would come and bring their cars. There are about half a dozen hunts all round, the area. Probably go and sab them in turn. But what we'd do sometimes is if there weren't many of us, what I would do is I lived in a bedsitter in Luton, and there was a payphone in the hall. And on a Thursday, I'd phone up all the local sab contacts and ask if they wanted to come out sabbing on the Saturday. And if there were only like maybe a couple of us, what we'd do is we would go to a different hunt that didn't know us, and we would pretend to be hunt supporters. And of course, we could chat to the other hunt supporters because we knew quite a lot about hunting, having sabbed hunts. And they'd ask us, "Oh, where are you from?" Because like they didn't know us, and we'd tell them we were normally supporters of some other hunt that we knew about, and that we were in that area, so we thought, we'd come and support their hunt. And what we'd do, we'd pretend we'd seen a fox. What they do, that the hunt supporters, when they see a fox, they holler to attract the attention of the huntsman, so the huntsman can get the hounds and was on the scent of the fox. And we pretend we'd seen a fox and holler, and some of the other hunt supporters would holler as well to make themselves look good with the master of the hunt. And they'd spend ages looking for a non-existent fox. And then we'd, a bit later, we'd do the same thing again, and we'd waste a load of their time, and that's how we used to do it.
In one of the Cheshire hunts, there was a regular copper who used to send the hunt the wrong way all the time.
That's the thing you can waste, because they spend a lot of time piddling about, to be quite honest. They spend a lot of time piddling about trying to find the scent and all that.
I think it's called blasting, Ronnie.
Yeah, I think probably that's the official name for it. I was never interested in all their official names for things. I just wanted to stop them killing the fox or whatever animal they're after killing. But that's you could waste loads of their time, and of course, you had no risk of like being beaten up or anything because they thought you were their mate. So it was like a really.
That brings me on to one of my questions. So obviously, I know that there's still incidents regularly, including a sab that was run over with a car just last year. But in comparison between then and now, do you think it was a lot more aggressive and violent, or do you think that it's the same now? It just gets more coverage.
It's very hard to say. I mean, there was.
I think it's case by case, isn't it, Ronnie?
Case by case. There was violence, and some hunts when
some were notorious, weren't they?
It was funny because from one small car I went to another small car, because after my Mini fell to pieces pretty much, my sister had a Hillman Imp which she gave to me, and from sabbing it in a Mini I went sabbing in another really small car, a Hillman Imp, and I remember having the windscreen of that broken by a huntsman. He hit the windscreen with his riding crop, broke the windscreen. Yeah, there were occasions when there'd be violence from the hunt or the hunt supporters.
I used to go sabbing on a motorbike, and sometimes I had people with me, so we had about 3 bikes, and sometimes I did it on my own, mainly doing false trails and stuff. But the hunters would kind of ride their horses into the bike, which would injure the horses,
Yeah, horse. I mean, you think of all these equine people, especially some of the really interested equine people. They'll always tell you about their bond with their horse and how are you using them as a weapon, and imagine how that horse feels being used as a weapon.
Yeah, I know. What happens to these horses when they're no longer of any use for hunting? When they get older and they can no longer...
Or if they just have a fall, right, and their injury costs thousands of pounds. Yeah. I mean...
Yeah. What happens to them? I think we know what happens to them, don't we? Because there's obviously a lot of emphasis on the hunted animal. Perhaps quite rightly. But at one time, a few years ago, there was a survey into what happened to the dogs used by the hunt, the hounds as they call them. Hunts killed about 5,000 of their dogs every year, either ones that got older and they couldn't keep up with the rest of the pack, or because they're breeding these dogs to use for hunting all the time. But not all of the young dogs are suitable. Not all of them will run with the pack. Some of them might be a bit too kind of perhaps anarchic. They don't obey the orders of the huntsman or whatever. They get killed as well. Especially
on TikTok, since Labour won the election, there's been lots and lots of pro-hunt people that have essentially kind of, well, it's emotional blackmail, really. I've put out like their videos saying, well, if they ban hunting, I won't have any reason to continue looking after my horse. I won't have any reason to continue paying their stable costs.
You pay their stable costs because that's your duty.
But no, it was as though like, well, if we can't hunt with them, what's the point of having them?